Almost got it right. That's impressive. All right, we got everybody. Great. The camera's in gear. Oh, you're still working on it? Are you ready there? Are you good? All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We've got 8 days left in this spring session with the General Assembly, and we're encouraging bipartisan compromise and focus. Focus, focus. There'll be a lot of other bills come up, a lot of distractions. I think last year we passed 530 bills or something. And I hope we don't get all bogged down in a lot of other issues. We need a balanced budget. We need compromises to grow our economy, protect taxpayers, especially property taxpayers, and get reforms on pensions and other issues so we can have a more efficient, effective government, protect our taxpayers, and most importantly, grow our economy with our job creators having more confidence in the future policies coming out of our government. I'm very gratified to have with us today leaders from Illinois business, the business community from around the state. We've got construction contractors, we've got manufacturing firms, we've got the leaders of the National Federation of Independent Business, small business. We have leaders, retailers. Retailers are the bellwether for how Illinois' economy is doing. You can tell how retail sales are going. And these folks all care deeply about our economic competitiveness. They want to grow, they want to create more jobs in the Illinois economy so we can have rising family incomes. And they care very much about the issues that we are advocating for reforms. Property taxes, true property tax relief, workers' comp reform, pension reform, the big issues that we're advocating. The job creators of Illinois care about these issues. These are not partisan issues. They're not Republican or Democrat issues. They are good government issues. They're good policy issues. They create more jobs, they result in higher family incomes, and they're necessary to have long-term balanced budgets in Illinois. We haven't had balanced budgets in Illinois as far back as I can see. One of the big reasons is because Illinois' economy hasn't been competitive. We haven't been growing our economy. And when government spending grows faster than the Illinois economy grows or Illinois' families' incomes grow, you get unbalanced budgets. And that's just how the math works. We've got to grow. We've got to become more pro-job creator. That's what today is about. Today, I'm calling on the members of the General Assembly, Democrats and Republicans, to continue to come together. I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that the working groups that have been underway now for weeks are making some progress. It's gone up and down. Some days are more progress than others. But there are bipartisan meetings happening today. Some happened over the weekend. Many happened last week. And I'm encouraging those rank and file members of the General Assembly, keep up the good work, come together in a spirit of compromise and doing the right thing for the people of Illinois so we can grow our economy, protect our taxpayers from these unaffordable property tax hikes that are killing our working families and our small business owners, and get reforms to grow our economy. That's the way to have higher prosperity for everybody. So today the meetings are going on, and we've got 8 days. Let's not get distracted with Band-Aids. Let's not get distracted with other topics. Let's not get distracted by anything other than coming together on a bipartisan basis to focus on what really matters, truly balanced budgets and reforms to protect taxpayers and grow the economy. With that, I'd like some of our other leaders who are here today to make some comments with you. And I think I'll start by turning it over to Leader Rauner.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much. I'd like to take a minute to give some context for some of the remarks that I think you're going to be hearing from others and sort of amplify the governor's message that it is critically important that we complete this task within the next 8 days or it becomes much more difficult. So I want to tell you, over the weekend I attended a few events, a graduation party, a ceremony recognizing the Armed Forces Day, and of course the question everyone asks is, what's going on down there? And the perception is still there's a battle of wills. And this is where all of you are so important in helping us get the message out. This is not just a battle of wills. We are really fighting for the very soul of this state. We're asking the Democrats to come together to engage with us and make some compromises, create a plan that will set our state on a path to financial health. Why is this important? because jobs are leaving Illinois, and guess what? People are following them. That is an indisputable fact. It is our very own University of Illinois has a study that shows that families are leaving, and they are leaving in order to find better jobs and homes with affordable property taxes. Just recently, we learned that Chicago is also losing population at a faster rate than any other metropolitan area. What does that tell you? It tells you that we need change. What we're asking for is a rebalancing of the system that has got us to this point. So we're asking for things that will help keep property taxes in check. Collective bargaining reforms with employee unions. They need local control in order to get a hold of some of these costs. So one of the examples I used over the weekend is when I talked to people, they would and said, can you believe that if there's a dispute between a collective bargaining unit and a municipality and it goes to arbitration, the arbitrator's not even allowed to consider whether or not that community can afford the resolution. That needs to change. That's one of the things that's been talked about in the working group. To me, that's eminently reasonable. Chicago, for another example, is allowed to do third-party contracting with their schools. In other words, to outsource some of the services that are not directly related to teaching. Chicago has that ability. We're asking for that ability for all the other communities. I don't think that that's unusual or dramatic, and it goes straight to the issue of why people are leaving this state, because they can't afford their property taxes and the jobs are elsewhere. Workers' compensation, universally cited as an issue with job creators as to why they won't come here. What happens when we start to talk about workers' comp reform? We hear the speaker say, those Republicans just want to send injured workers to the hospital emergency room and have nothing to do with them. That's ridiculous, and nothing could be further from the truth. And the working groups have come up with some realistic suggestions about how to improve the situation. But the answer is no. We just want to end workers' compensation as we know it. That's untrue. We will not accept any more tax increases unless these things are dealt with. It's not fair to the people of this state, and we've already seen that just simple tax increases without change do not help the situation. So I think tax increases, again, are off the table until there is an agreement on some of these other issues that directly impact the people of this state. Thank you, and I'd like to turn over to Jim Durkin.
Thank you. Thanks, Leader. Real simple. Time to get the work done. We've got 8 days left. Members of both sides of the aisle are desperately finding or seeking a way to finish this impasse. We've known for months exactly what it's going to take to break the impasse. It's called negotiation. It means compromise. That means both sides must accept and consider the priorities of each. On our side, it's very simple. We need to grow our economy. We need to put people back to work. We got to retain our employers. I've done this for the past 3 years. Number one complaint, whether it's the CEO of Caterpillar or the small mom and pop, even our local government, you must reform the workman's compensation system. The premiums are too high. It's right there, folks. The proof's in the pudding. But we also can't stop there. We have to get control of our pension systems. It's been over a year. We have to do something. It's drowning. The state is drowning because of the cost of our pension systems. And also, local property taxes with reforms at the local government. All three of those. That's the pathway to getting out of Springfield with a balanced budget. Now, I will say this, that I've spoke to many members of the Democratic side, rank and file members, and they will agree with us that we need and we can accept changes in each one of those systems. And we're glad to work with them on their priorities. And I've also talked to a leading member of the Democrat caucus and said, look, if the parties really wanted to do it, we can do a budget in 48 hours. Well, I tell you what, we're 8 days out. Illinois is not going to accept another year without a budget. But I will say this, if we leave by the end of the month without a budget, it's not because the Republicans, the governor and the Senate Republicans and House Republicans are not willing to negotiate and compromise to find a solution. It's not going to be in our hands. It's going to be on the Democrats' hands. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to the the president of the Illinois Manufacturers Association, Greg Bays.
Governor, thank you. Yesterday, the governor attended an event at the chairman of our board of directors facility in Bedford Park, Latham Hickey Steel. It's a 90-year-old family-owned steel-making, steel processing business. And so on 73rd Street, as I said, in Bedford Park, it is in one of the premier locations for manufacturing firms in this state. Midway Airport's nearby, the rail yards are there. The workforce in the southwest side, in fact, very close to Speaker Madigan's own district, are able to get the kind of workers at that steel facility. But when you drove to that facility yesterday, you drove by, as I'm sure you noticed, Governor, lots of vacant manufacturing facilities that are gone. Reasons that they have left is cited by the speakers beforehand and as the governor has talked about. Higher workers' compensation and high property taxes in Cook County are driving those kinds of good jobs out of Cook County and throughout the state. Bill Hickey, who runs that facility, has got a decision to make in the next 24 months. He has to expand that facility. He could do it in Bedford Park, where there's all sorts of opportunity just up and down that street, or he can be looking at places like Indiana, which he is doing. I implore the General Assembly to look at this issue along with property taxes and balancing the budget and get it done quickly. The business community represented by the other leaders here today look at their state government and they want to have stability. They want to understand what's coming. And if it does require some higher taxes to get us through some of the needs that we need to get through, we'll be supportive of that. But we will not be asking the leaders of the General Assembly to ask their members to vote for higher taxes unless we have seen some of these items put on the table as meaningful reforms. I've been around this place for a long time and watched a lot of budgets and a lot of youth sessions end. And Speaker Madigan last week in front of us, our group, and in front of the organizations that were out on the lawn, said the budget-making process should not be hampered by these other kinds of issues. Well, I think the Speaker knows, and I think a lot of you who've been around here knows, there's always other issues that are involved. And this year it should be an attempt to lower property taxes. It should be an attempt to reform the workers' comp system, and we should get Illinois back on a strong financial footing. We applaud the governor and the leaders of the General Assembly who are here today for their efforts, and we will be supportive not only for the next 8 days, but as long as it takes to get it done. Governor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bays. I encourage you in the media, as we break here, to do Q&A, to ask questions of any and all the attendees, both as a group but also in one-on-one discussions. I want to reiterate that everything that we're advocating is bipartisan. There is not a single issue, not a single reform that we're advocating that doesn't have bipartisan, strong support. On workers' comp costs, we hear from Democrats as well as Republicans, job creators around the state, that we need workers' comp reform. And our Attorney General, who is a Democrat, has said causation should be part of our workers' comp laws. That's what we're advocating. This is not partisan, this is bipartisan. Same thing on property taxes. All over the state, families who are registered Democrats, families who are registered Republicans, their number one complaint is their property tax bill. This is a bipartisan issue, and we have bipartisan solutions. Everybody in the state believes in local control. If you live in a certain community, let your community decide how you handle your costs of your government. It's your government. It doesn't belong to Springfield or the federal government. It's your own. It's your home. Your schools are your own schools. Your city is your city. Your village is your village. Your county is your county. Handle the costs of your government the way you want to handle them. If you like the status quo, terrific. Nothing has to change. But it should be up to you to be able to decide. Springfield shouldn't put unfunded mandates or restrictions on you and your community. This has strong bipartisan support. Same thing on pension reform. Democrats and Republicans have come together and said we need pension reform, and I'm willing, as part of a compromise, to have a pension reform that doesn't go as far as we really need to go. I'm willing to support the Democratic president in the Senate, John Cullerton, his pension reform proposal. It's not even mine. It doesn't go far enough. I'd rather do one that goes further, and it would save $2.5 billion a year for our property taxpayers and our income taxpayers in Illinois. But to start in good faith as part of a compromise, I'm willing to start with President Cullerton's plan, which saves $1 billion a year. These are the issues that are on the table. They're bipartisan. They're good government reforms. These are not partisan issues, and they are the key to long-term balanced budgets. And when some have argue in the General Assembly, these have nothing to do with the budget. These are not budget related. let's be crystal clear. They are 100% related to the budget. 100%. We can't have balanced budgets if our government spending is growing faster than our economy is growing. It's not possible. It can't happen. Our economy needs to grow as fast or faster than our government spending, and our family incomes need to grow faster than our government spending in order to have balanced budgets. That's the math. And here's a simple fact that I want to reiterate for your viewers and your listeners. Our state for decades has been growing among the worst states in America, always at the bottom of economic growth over the long term. It's terrible, there's no excuse. We have the hardest working families in America, the best location of any state in America, the best infrastructure, the best agriculture. We should be thriving, and we've been the heart of manufacturing in America, and manufacturing jobs are high paying, and they create 5 other jobs for every one manufacturing job. We should be one of the highest growing states in America. We should be top 10 growth state. Instead, we're always among the bottom. And if we were just average, only just average, and I want us to be much better than average, but if we'd grown just average the last 15 years, we would not have a budget deficit today, directly related to the budget. Average economic growth, we would not have a deficit, we would not have any unpaid bills, we would not have needed the 2011 tax hike that was put in by the Democrats in the General Assembly in 2011. And we would have billions, well over $10 billion more in the state treasury today to fund our human services and to fund our schools. And probably to give a tax rebate. That would be a novel idea in Illinois. We could actually afford to give a tax rebate if our economic growth had been strong enough that we could do that. Economic growth is the key, and all of our reforms that we're advocating to help small business become bigger business are about growth. Growth will get us to balanced budgets. That's why we've got to stay on these issues. We need reform as part of a grand compromise. We can look at some new revenues. I've said I'll support them. And I've also said we can get spending agreements, spending reductions. We've worked out a framework for the budget in recent weeks. The framework's right there. And I am willing to do new taxes as part of a grand bargain. I'd rather not, but I'm willing to do it. That's what the political process is about compromise. But what I won't do is just put in a massive tax hike as part of a budget and think that's going to solve the problem. Tax hike with no reform doesn't make any sense. So we need to either raise a budget with new revenue and spending cuts along with reforms, or if the Democrats would like, we can do a budget with no reforms but no new taxes. But that's hard, and they've indicated, we've had much feedback from the Democratic caucus, they don't want to have to cut very much. Well, we can't, somewhere something's got to give. We can't keep going down the road of these unbalanced budgets. With that, I'll open up to questions.
You said that if there's no budget by Monday, you said that you want an education bill, at least. What do you want in that education bill? And without a budget, you have said you want more money into schools. How do you accomplish that?
Well, so last year, I did sign an education bill last year, even though we didn't have a budget, because to me, our kids come first. Our kids and their education should come first, no matter what else happens with a budget. And last year I signed it, and this year I've said, I hope we can have education be part of a grand compromise with a truly balanced budget. That's far and away the first choice, and that's what I'm advocating. But I have asked the General Assembly, if we can't work out the budget by May 31st, and I'm optimistic we will, but if we can't, no matter what, we should have a clean school funding bill so our schools can know what's coming and can open on time. There is no excuse to hold up our schools or hold our schools hostage for this budget process. We bring in over $32 billion a year in revenue, so we have the cash to fund our schools properly. And what I've said is, let's increase state support for schools. I asked for more last year than the General Assembly gave me. This year, I've asked for full foundation level, no more proration, no more proration. We should go to 100% of the foundation level this year, no matter what. And we have the money is there if we treat our kids and our teachers as the top priority. So I've said, no matter what, let's go to the full foundation level. I've been clear, I don't like the education funding formula that the Democrats last updated in 2003. It's not my formula. Every year, under our current funding formula, every year, some districts get some more money from the state, some districts get less. That's been true for decades. I didn't make that up. I don't particularly like it, but it is what we have. And changing it is hard because every legislator looks at what happens in a funding formula in their district. And any funding formula that cuts a school in their district, they don't like. And every legislator who looks and says, well, that funding formula gets my schools more money, so I like that one. And pretty soon you got people going like this. What we shouldn't do is hold up overall funding increasing and schools opening on time. I've also asked for early education, which is a critical, essential issue for especially our low-income kids who are growing up without all the advantages of higher incomes. We should support early childhood education, increased funding as well.
Can I ask about math and tone? You talked about math a few times. Part of
About
the
math? Oh.
just like a year ago, the leaders here that are representing their side both have significant minorities and you still have Democratic majorities to deal with. And your tone today is very conciliatory, but Saturday in Peoria, you talked about the Chicago machine and the corrupt insiders and all of these terrible things that they've done to the state, and you're going to have this massive campaign against them, biggest ground game ever. So aren't you doing the same thing you're doing last year, and what's changed to try to get something through without just a straight budget, without the turnaround agenda?
Well, change takes persistence. Change is hard, and we're advocating change in the system. We've had a broken system and unbalanced budgets in Illinois for decades and job losses for decades.
So if you don't get it and schools don't open, or colleges
No, but they can open. We didn't get a budget last year and schools open. There's no reason that schools can't open.
Which I don't think are represented here, are still laying off people. How long can this go on?
So our human service agencies have been suffering in Illinois for years and years. They do not get paid on time. This is not in the past year. This is going past years.
It's never been this bad.
Well, you know what? Our economy's gotten worse, and the deficits are out of control. We need to change, and change is hard, but we're going to get there. The exciting thing is Democrats in the General Assembly in private, many of them, not all, many of them agree with the reforms.
Name one or two?
Well, I'll say the one who's said it publicly is Elaine Neckritz. She has said it publicly. Most of them are unwilling to say much publicly because they don't want to get retribution. Change is hard. Change is scary. But there's agreement in private. The question is, will the Democrats stand up and do the right thing together for reforms, or despite the fear of retribution? That's really what this boils down to. Will the Democrats and the supermajority stand up and do what they know is right? What we can, I think, these are bipartisan reforms. It's the right thing to do for the people of Illinois. Yes.
I've seen the movie Groundhog Day a number of times. I feel like
It's a good movie, isn't it?
I feel like we're reliving the same thing over and over, week by week, day by day. Now it's starting to turn year to year. I mean, at this point, is everybody afraid that we're just going to relive last year all over again? Just as many closures, just as many programs cut, just as many unsure possibilities? I mean, it's kind of scary, right?
Oh, it's terrible. There's no reason, there's no excuse we can't have a balanced budget, which we haven't had in years, a balanced budget, and a strongly growing economy. We can get there. The reason I'm hopeful that you're not correct, it's just going to be exactly like last year, is many more Democrats are saying in private that it's the right thing to do is get a grand compromise.
I mean, if I were the actual taxpayer, what I want to hear up front as opposed to behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're asking. That's what we want. Say it publicly, and let's take some votes. Let's vote on these issues. Let's get some votes done. You're going to see a lot of votes and a lot of bills pop out this week. I hope they relate to what matters. We don't need Band-Aids. We don't need to declare another state pie. We don't need to declare another state vegetable. We don't need to declare another illegal substance that we should expand. We need to focus on what matters. People's incomes need to rise. We need more jobs in this state. We need to bring down our property tax burden. We need to reform our pensions so it's fair to our workers and to our taxpayers. And we should reform our political system, bipartisan, fair maps, term limits, huge bipartisan support. Why can't we do this? The people want it. Let's keep working for it. Yes, sir.
Pension, workers' comp, collective bargaining, those are all big. Those don't come together easily. How do you get one or all of those done between now and the 31st?
Well, we've been working on all of them for well over a year. So it's not like, oh, we're out of time, or this is too much to do too quickly. None of this has all been worked on for over a year. And there has been bipartisan negotiations going on for over a year. And most of what needs to happen is already in bill form. And it's pretty easy to delete that word, move that sentence, and get legislation in a form that it can be voted on. This is not that hard. And our General Assembly has proved for decades they can get a lot done in the middle of the night in the last 48 or 72 hours of a session. So we've got 8 days. That's one of the reasons I'm ringing the bell right now. 8 days is plenty of time if we focus. If we get distracted with other stuff, the time will slip away from us. I'm asking us to focus, and let's do what people agree is the right thing to do for the people of Illinois.
Governor, at what point does not having a state budget and all the uncertainty that that causes for business become the #1 issue hurting our business climate in the state, more so than workers' comp or property taxes?
Yeah, I can tell you it's a huge issue hurting our economy, but let me be clear. If what we did was either now, again, pass a bunch of spending bills that are out of balance, like we've been doing for decades, that scares the heck out of business owners. They say, look at these guys. We could never do that in business. We'd go bankrupt. Look at these guys. Your average homeowner, if your average homeowner kept spending more than they bring in, their family would go bankrupt. They look at our state and say, for years, this state government in Illinois has been fundamentally irresponsible. That's devastating. So if we keep going along the road we've been on of spending more than we bring in, that's devastating. And number two, if we put in a big tax hike to cover the deficit short term, if that's all we did with no reforms, that the stream of businesses leaving the state would turn to a flood. And I can promise you, as I've traveled the state, especially along the Indiana border and the Wisconsin border, states that have made reforms, there are a lot of businesses that are getting wooed, getting recruited, and many of them have said, Governor, we've stayed because we like your message, we like where you're going, and we'd rather be in Illinois. But if you can't get done what you're trying to get done, we're going to have to look very seriously about moving. So we're at a critical point. And anybody who says, well, let's either just to put a massive tax hike and talk about reform later, massive mistake, or let's just keep doing what we've been doing. Kick the can, have unfunded spending bills. Let's raise the amount of unpaid bills, or keep kicking the can on our pensions. That will be devastating as well. General Electric made it clear to me. I spent weeks and weeks trying to recruit General Electric to come to Illinois. I worked also with the mayor of Chicago with them. Illinois was their first choice. We were their first choice, and what a fantastic employer. Huge company, Fortune 50 in the world, high-paying jobs, big in high-tech manufacturing. They would have been a home run for the Illinois economy. And you know what GE told me? Illinois' first choice. They wanted to come, they wanted to hire the hardworking people of Illinois. They love the U of I, and I sold them hard on the engineering school at the U of I. They love our transportation network. They love our airports. They were in. But you know what they said to me? Governor, we can't go from one failed state to another. We can't, now listen to what they're saying. This is a big deal. This is what we need your viewers to understand. We can't go from one failed state to another. Now, your average person will say, oh, Connecticut's not so bad. Why has Connecticut failed? Connecticut's failing because they do the same thing we do. They don't balance their budgets. They don't take on the structural causes for the problems. They have hostile business regulations, and they raise the income tax every few years to cover their deficit, year after year after year. And GE finally said, that's enough. It's over. It's over. We're not going to do that anymore. They gave us months and months of extra time to come up with reforms, and finally they said we're going to have to look elsewhere. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
House Democrats are considering an education plan that would pump up baseline funding for poorer districts through one-time grants up to $500 million. Is that something you'd support right now? There's not a dedicated revenue stream for that.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of rumors about what might come out of these working groups, and also out of bills. I don't want to jump ahead and speculate about what might come out or what my view might be. I'm encouraging bipartisan reforms with a balanced budget, and I'm cautiously optimistic it'll come out.
That's all you get for K through 12, which you said you want to fund.
Well, I don't want to speculate, and I certainly don't want to put a damper on the hopeful tone that many Democrats and Republicans are holding in the General Assembly.
You know,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you got one already. You didn't get one. Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
Senate President Cullerton has said that he won't go along with pension changes because there's this outstanding question of the AFSCME members' contracts, and he wants that issue settled too hard. Say we're going to take away your pensions, and we don't know what your health care costs, what your salary is going to be. So what are you doing about that? And also, can you clarify, must causation be part of workers' compensation? Will you take any workers' compensation plan?
You snuck in an extra one. You snuck in an extra one. You violated Catherine's rule. All right, let's calm. I'll do both those. So the answer is, we need to move the needle on workers' comp. There isn't one particular issue, because there's several ways to, I'll use the phrase skin the cat. There's several different approaches, but it needs to make us more competitive. What we can't do is a tiny change like we did back, 5, 6 years ago. It was a change, and people ran around saying, well, aren't we wonderful? We reformed workers' comp. It brought us down like 2 notches or something in terms of...
47.
Okay, so he knows. We can't just only move a little. Now, we don't have to be like Indiana and be the lowest workers' comp costs, because we have harder working people, a better location, better resources. So, but we've got to be more average. So whatever moves us to be more average and competitive is the answer. And I'm open to different ideas. Now, your first question was about the negotiations and the pensions. Yeah, I love John. That comment's kind of goofy. I mean, Here's the issue. He's advocated for pension reform. I'm advocating his plan. That has nothing to do with any particular round of contract negotiations. They're not related. And here's a critical point. We have come to terms with 18 unions now, and in good faith. And we have got a very reasonable proposal on the table with our largest state government employee union. I personally believe, I've got a lot of friends in state government, a lot of friends who are AFSCME members. Virtually all of them have talked to me about it, say they're okay with it. I believe if the union leaders allowed our proposal to go to a vote, it would pass. It's a reasonable deal. It's very straightforward. And we're given bonuses and a chance to make more money based on productivity and based on gain sharing for taxpayers. That's a win-win. It's a reasonable proposal. And we're just following the rules, following the law, and anybody who thinks that somehow it's fair or reasonable to strip me of my ability to negotiate in good faith on behalf of taxpayers and hand the process over to an unelected arbitrator, that's just wrong. And that's this bill that I vetoed. That's unreasonable. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks for speaking here today.